Your identity doesn't retire. You need to finance it. It's a stark statement, isn't it? We've been conditioned, for the better part of a century, to see retirement as this finish line. You work for 40, maybe 50 years, you get the gold watch, the handshake, and then, what? You're retired. The word itself implies a withdrawal, a stepping back, and for many, that's exactly what happens. But I started to notice something, a pattern, a quiet undercurrent of dissatisfaction, a feeling adrift among people who had achieved this milestone. It wasn't always about the money. Many were financially secure. It was something deeper. I was looking at how we structure our lives, this linear path of education, work, retire, expire, the concept of retirement, as we know it. This abrupt cessation of professional activity around age 65 or 70 is a relatively new invention, largely a product of the 20th century. It was born out of industrial era needs, social security systems, and a time when lifespans were shorter and the nature of work was often more physically grueling. But the world has changed. We live longer, work is increasingly knowledge-based, and our understanding of personal fulfillment has evolved. Yet, this outdated model of retirement persists, almost like a societal default setting. And I realized the biggest casualty of this model isn't necessarily financial well-being, but identity. Think about it. For decades, a significant part of who you are, how you introduce yourself, how society perceives you, is tied to your profession. I'm a teacher. I'm an engineer. I'm a manager. Then, one day, that label is gone. And if that label was the primary pillar holding up your sense of self, what happens when it's removed? There's a void. This is where the idea began to crystallize for me. The traditional concept of retirement often forces us to retire from ourselves, or at least from a significant part of our active contributing identity. This led me to consider an alternative. What if, instead of aiming for an abrupt retirement, we aimed for a state of continuous financed life, a life where work, in its traditional sense, becomes a choice, not a necessity, much earlier than conventional retirement age. This isn't about not working. It's about decoupling your survival and essential expenses from active labor. It's about achieving financial independence. By financial independence, I mean having enough passive income that's income generated from assets like investments, real estate, or businesses you don't actively manage day to day to cover your essential living costs. When you reach this point, something profound shifts. Your work is no longer dictated by the need to pay the bills. It can be dictated by passion, by purpose, by curiosity, by a desire to contribute or create. You get to choose how, when, and if you work. This redefines retirement not as an end, but as a state of ongoing financial freedom. So, how does this tie back to identity? If your identity is no longer solely propped up by your job title, because your financial security isn't tied to it, you're free to cultivate a more multifaceted, resilient, and authentic self. You can explore those latent talents, those passions you put on hold because they didn't pay the bills. Maybe you always wanted to paint, right? Mentor, learn a new language, volunteer for a cause you believe in, or even start a small business purely for the joy of it. A financed life gives you the runway to do that. This isn't just a theory. I've seen how this plays out. People who focus on building financial independence early don't suddenly become idle. Instead, they often become more engaged, more creative, more themselves. Their identity isn't shrinking, it's expanding. They are, quite literally, financing the continued exploration and expression of who they are and who they want to become. Let's think about how this applies in real life. Imagine you're passionate about environmental conservation, but your career is in accounting because it's stable. If you achieve financial independence, you don't have to quit accounting if you enjoy it, but you now have the option to dedicate significant time to conservation efforts. Perhaps volunteering your accounting skills to an NGO, or even starting a local initiative. Your identity as an accountant can now coexist and even synergize with your identity as a conservationist. You're not retiring from something, you're expanding into something more. This makes your sense of self richer and more robust. It's no longer dependent on a single source of validation. The conventional path often leads to a crisis when the job ends. We see people struggle. They feel they've lost their purpose. But if your purpose is an evolving tapestry woven from various threads of interest and contribution, funded by your financial independence, then the end of one particular job is just a transition, not a termination of your value or your identity. Another thing that struck me is how our education system inadvertently prepares us for this old model. It's largely geared towards creating employees, cogs in the economic machine, rather than financially sovereign individuals. We learn a profession to earn a salary, but rarely do we learn how to make our money work for us. How to build those streams of passive income that lead to a financed life. This lack of financial literacy is a huge barrier. If we were taught from a younger age about investing, about asset creation, about the power of compound interest, not just for wealth, but for freedom, Imagine how many more people could design lives of greater autonomy and purpose. Think about the practical steps here. This isn't about getting rich quick, it's about a mindset shift. It's about consciously deciding that a portion of your current earnings isn't just for current consumption, but an investment in your future freedom and your future self. It means distinguishing between wants and needs more critically. It means seeing every dollar as a potential seed for a future income stream. This could be investing in dividend-paying stocks, buying a rental property, creating an online course, or writing a book. The how can vary, but the why is consistent. To build a financial engine that powers your life, freeing you to pursue your evolving identity. The beauty of this approach is that it's not an all-or-nothing game either. Even partial financial independence, where passive income covers, say, half your expenses, can dramatically increase your options and reduce your reliance on a job you may not love. It gives you bargaining power. It gives you breathing room. It allows you to take more calculated risks in your career or personal projects. Because the financial safety net is self-made. So, the core idea isn't to demonize work or traditional careers. It's to reframe the ultimate goal. Instead of seeing retirement as this distant, somewhat nebulous state of rest at the end of a long, hard road, we should see the financed life as an achievable state of active, purposeful freedom that can begin much sooner. It's about proactively building a foundation that allows your identity to flourish, to adapt, to reinvent itself continuously, unconstrained by purely economic necessities. The phrase "your identity doesn't retire, finance it" is a call to action. It's a reminder that who you are is far too valuable to be put on a shelf when your formal employment ends. Your passions, your curiosities, your desire to learn and contribute. These things don't have an expiration date, but they do need resources. They need time, energy, and often, some financial backing. By focusing on financing your freedom, you are, in essence, investing in the lifelong project of becoming more fully yourself. You are ensuring that your identity doesn't just fade away with your last paycheck, but continues to evolve, grow, and find expression for as long as you live. This is a profound shift from passively waiting for retirement to actively architecting a life of sustained meaning and self-directed purpose. So, how do we begin to weave this concept of a financed life into the fabric of our everyday existence? It's not about grand sweeping changes that feel overwhelming. It starts with the small things, the almost imperceptible choices we make daily. Think about that daily latte or the subscription you barely use. What if a fraction of that discretionary spending was redirected consistently towards an investment account, no matter how small? It sounds simple, almost too simple, but the power lies in consistency and compound growth over time. This isn't just about accumulating wealth, it's about accumulating choices for your future self. Each time you consciously choose to save or invest, even a tiny amount, you're casting a vote for your future freedom and the ability to pursue your passions. Another simple, yet profoundly impactful, daily action is to dedicate just 15 to 20 minutes to learning. Read an article about personal finance, listen to a podcast on investing. Understand the difference between an asset, something that puts money in your pocket, and a liability, something that takes money out. This knowledge alone can shift your entire financial perspective. Consider skills you have. Could you spend an hour a week developing a side project? Something that could eventually generate a small stream of passive income? This could be writing, teaching an online skill, creating art, or anything that leverages your unique talents. The benefit here isn't just potential income. It's the act of creation. It's about building something that is yours, that contributes to your sense of agency and expands your identity beyond your primary job. These small, consistent actions build momentum. They cultivate habits that serve your long-term vision of a life where work is a choice, driven by passion, not solely by necessity. This allows your true self to emerge. The immediate benefit is a growing sense of control and empowerment. You start to see that financial freedom isn't some far-off dream, but a tangible goal built by daily discipline. This journey itself becomes a part of your evolving identity, the identity of someone who is proactive, intentional, and the architect of their own future. Thank you for exploring these ideas with me. I genuinely hope this perspective offers some valuable food for thought. If you're interested in diving a bit deeper or finding some related insights, please do check out the description below.